You've tuned in to When Your Mind Becomes the Scene of the Crime podcast. I'm Dr. Linda F. Williams. I take survivors of abuse and trauma from pain to purpose so that you take back your power, tap into the truth of who you are, and live your best life now. We're going to look at a few clips from the Ed Mylett show on July 25th, 2023. When he interviewed Jessie Lee Ward, who is a social media and marketing guru. Now, you either like this woman or you didn't. But we're not going to talk about the different things that she did wrong in her life or in her business. Today, I'm coming at you as a rectal cancer survivor and looking at this interview from the standpoint of mindset and trauma.
Let's go right to it. Everybody has that fear of, I've got cancer and it's stage 4. It's metastasized. What does it feel like in your life when you actually get that news?
It really humbled me immediately. It brought me to my knees. I was told I would be dead most likely in October.
Correct.
They told me there's no way I'm going to see Christmas. I thought I was in the best shape of my life.
Which
and
you
so,
were.
It really was. I went on a health journey starting in May of 2022. I was intentionally losing weight. So, and it didn't feel super fast to me. It was 20 pounds or something in 9 months. I woke up tired some days. And for sure, I pushed myself past points of maybe exhaustion, if you will, in order to hit a goal. But I never thought anything was wrong. So I went and got these tests done. And I really thought I was going to get the MRI back. And it was going to be like, oh, look, I can brag about this. And look at these blood tests. And look at all this stuff. Because I had been doing blood tests quarterly for a while. And instead of that, it just came back. Big red flag right in my stomach. Which ended up being metastasized lymph nodes. And then in my lower right colon area, right at the cecum, where the small and large intestine attached were tumors. It makes you realize how fragile life is. It makes you realize everything you thought you knew maybe wasn't true. And it makes you realize how precious the people that matter really are, what matters and what doesn't matter. It put my whole life in perspective in seconds.
I can vouch for the fact that the way getting this diagnosis affects your perspective changes everything and causes you to prioritize what's important, causes you to rethink the way you've dealt with your life up to now. But what we're going to see in a minute is how the trauma responses and control responses interfered with that perspective for Jessie Lee Ward.
What is it like what happens in your body? I think I had this amazing life. I'm a millionaire. I'm traveling. I'm beautiful. She had recently met a guy that she's super crazy about. And wham, in that moment, does it take your breath away? Do you have a flood of your life before your eyes? What actually happens to you? I'm curious, in that moment, what went through your body and your mind?
I think everyone's different, but for me, it wrecked me. I don't have bad days, but I have bad moments. And when somebody's going through something like this, it's like I am an intense person, and I have been a control freak my whole life because of childhood stuff, and I was forced into leadership positions at a really young age. And so I've always been the person where when anything is bad, it's like, oh, it's no problem. I can work harder, or I can make more money, or I can find the resources, or no matter what, I'm just not going to give up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And all of a sudden, I realized how completely out of control I was. I realized this is not just you slap a Band-Aid on it. Everything you thought you could control, you can't. And it was especially frustrating because I was already on a health journey. So then it's kind of this like smack in the teeth of I've never cried the way I've cried.
And folks, that's the beginning of the control issues taking over in spite of the truth that this was something that she could not control. Now, what we have to understand as trauma survivors is that almost all of us has some level of control issues. These issues will show up in many different ways. It's not going to be the same for everybody. But the truth is that there's an underlying current through all of our lives as trauma survivors that says, I couldn't control what somebody else did to me, but I'm going to control everything else. This can be a positive influence in some areas, and it can be a negative influence in others.
Do you think about, like, why is this me?
Yeah, for sure. Because I felt like you said I'm in the prime of my life, and I felt like, wow, I'm not married, I don't have kids, I don't where is my legacy aside from all these people I've helped in business? But then I actually started dissecting my life or things that happened to me. With that knowledge, then I went, okay, well then how can I heal from this? And that became really empowering for me because I then made a decision that I'm just going to change everything. My whole life has to change. And I got a lot of clarity from that. Instead of worrying so much about things, I said, okay, well, there's a lot I can't control, but maybe there is more that I can control than I realized.
On the surface, that sounds excellent. If we focus where we have control, then we are empowered. Generally, our control will be internal. How can I look at this differently? You need to focus on things not where you have no control. That's generally with other people's behaviors. In this case and in my case, there was very little control I had over the fact that I was diagnosed with colon cancer. But when you focus where you have control, it's generally going to send you internal, which is where you have all your power. You are not operating out of a reactionary, disempowered perspective of focusing where you have no control. Your secret command center is internal. How can I look at this differently? What are the other perspectives? Okay, I've got this diagnosis. I can't change that. But how am I going to move forward in my best interest? So what Jessie Lee is saying here is excellent. But as we'll see, she kind of took a different path with that.
Forgiveness was one of my biggest things. I have not forgiven, even though I've said I've forgiven things. The anger and the grief and the sadness and the trauma and all this stuff from my childhood that has turned me into who I am in a business sense. So I'm not mad about it, but I have not actually released it. And I can say online and in my speeches and in all the stuff that I do, oh no, that's in the past and I've released it and blah, 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 all the right stuff to say. But if I'm going to be real with your listeners, I didn't forgive. It's not useful. And so forgiveness has been one of the biggest things.
And forgiveness is important to our own private healing. And you notice that she said she was preaching all the right things, but she had not actually forgiven. This is what happens with a lot of trauma survivors. We are so used to getting into a mindset where we are surviving and we know how to compartmentalize so that we can function. And forgiveness and our healing can get set aside. So her diagnosis made her realize she hadn't actually forgiven her mother. She's no different than any of us. It usually takes a what we call come to Jesus moment where we realize that we're stuck in our healing because we haven't forgiven others.
And yeah, why me? Maybe because I grew up in a super toxic environment, and maybe because I didn't have the greatest nutrition, and maybe because, I put myself in situations of stress all the time because I liked it. I like achievement. But I also realized that it wasn't going to be a cancer where you just cut it out.
Yeah.
It was going to be a cancer where it's aggressive, just like me. And me healing from this is going to show a lot of people a lot of amazing things. It's going to give a lot of people a lot of hope. And it's going to probably give people their control back over their bodies and their minds and their lives.
Now she's leaning into that part of herself that has the control issues. She's convinced herself that she can just will this diagnosis away, that she can deal with it in her own way.
Bunch of times, I essentially had a funeral for my mom 5 years ago. My mom's alive. But she put us through situations as children that we were in danger all the time. I mean, like, we were physically in danger a lot. And then it was 5 years ago at Christmas. I went and saw her anyway, because I was always trying to you're supposed to have a mom, you're supposed to have a mom, you're supposed to forgive, you're supposed to whatever. And on Christmas, 2 times on Christmas Eve in front of all her friends, she yelled at me that I was a stupid effing bit. Yeah. And I walked out, and that was just my final straw. Like, I can't do it anymore. And so I had a funeral for somebody I loved, and I just said I'll never talk to her again. And when all this was happening, I have these weird epiphanies that come to me.
Yeah.
And they're just these guided moments of intuition, maybe, or spirit, or whatever you want to call them. And it's almost like the Holy Spirit's whispering.
There you go.
I don't know how else to explain it. And I woke up one day, and I went, I haven't even remotely forgiven my mom.
My heart goes out to Jessie Lee here. What we have to understand is that sometimes we have to cut people off in our lives, period, full stop. And our forgiving somebody doesn't mean we have to keep them in our lives in any shape, form, or fashion. This is where focus and where you have control matters. If she could not control how her mother saw her, how her mother responded to her, whether her mother ever acknowledged her wrong in their lives, she can't control that. But she can control the quality decision to forgive. And that's what she did. And as you'll see, that worked out for her here. But for the rest of us, look, forgiveness does not mean that you have to continue to expose yourself to toxicity, period. It's just a decision you make. You decide that, okay, I'm going to quit expecting them to act right. I'm going to quit expecting them to ask forgiveness. I'm going to quit expecting them to be to me what they are either unwilling or incapable of being to me. It's where you completely cut off your own expectations of someone else's behavior so that you can move on. It's basically like you have decided to disconnect your healing from whatever the heck they do. That's why not forgiving keeps us stuck.
And I wrote her an email. I said, hey, Mom, I'm writing this because I need closure, and I don't know if you do too. And I went through it, and I came from such a place of compassion. And I just said, I can't imagine being in your shoes. How could I expect you to be this compassionate, loving, kind, caring, super maternal, loving mother when no one in our family is like that? And so I told her, I thanked her for things. None of it was not an accusatory email. The whole thing was loving. It was, my work ethic's from you. My brains are from you.
Yeah.
My ability to pick stuff up, boom, and learn it and just attack stuff is you. I know it's you. And I gave her her flowers. And I just said, I haven't forgiven you, and I needed to send this so that I can. She wrote an email back. The opening line is really powerful. She said, Jessie Lee, I don't need closure from you. I need my daughter. And it was this just beautiful email she wrote back. And we chatted back and forth a couple days. And I just said, and she even said, I would just jump on a plane and be anywhere you are. I said, well, right now I'm in Barcelona, headed to Germany tomorrow. So maybe don't jump on a plane today. But I bought her a flight, and she'll be in Dallas tomorrow with me.
Good for you. That's excellent. What Jessie has modeled here is 2 aspects of the forgiveness process. You have to understand, and from understanding comes compassion, and from compassion, you forgive. Now, this requires you to see and understand a lot of things that person may not see and understand about themselves. So this is almost a supernatural process. For me, I've had to ask God to let me see my wrongdoers as he sees them, because we can ill afford for God to see us any way but what he created. And he created us one way, life twists us up into another thing. But he can see past what life has twisted us into. And none of this absolves the wrongdoer of what they did. None of it. Okay? That doesn't mean that we condone what they did. It doesn't mean we forget what they did. If we forget everything we forgive, then we can make the wrong decisions again. And that's what we don't want to do. Now, the Bible doesn't tell anybody to forgive and forget. That's not what it says. It says God will forgive and forget our sins, but we're not told that we need to forget. So when you forgive, you do not forget what happened, and you do not absolve them of their responsibility for what they did. Okay? And sometimes you have to forgive and leave people alone and keep them out of your life. So we have to get over this misconception that if we forgive somebody, that we've absolved them of their responsibility, that we condone what they did to us. We don't. But she did the right thing here. She came from a position of truth, but she came from a position of compassion and understanding.
I've realized that the Jessie Lee version 1.0, she's dead. Who I used to be, she's gone. She has to be, because she's the one who created this illness, this dis-ease, right?
Do you believe that?
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question about that.
I don't know about that, Jesse. Is this your control dynamic leading you to believe that you have control over even that? That you're at fault for this? I'm not sure that I would agree with that. Although I can understand why Jesse might think this way, I'm not sure that I totally agree with what she's saying.
Would you change something in your previous life? Meaning, was going for it like you and I have gone for it in our life all it's cracked out to be? Because now that you're 34, you've got this diagnosis. So, and by the way, she was literally told, you won't be here for Christmas. Would you still have gone for it like a crazy person, but maybe enjoyed it a little bit more?
So this is a cool new stage where I've been saying yes to only things I really want to say yes to, which I wish I had done sooner with some things.
Wow.
But it's really, I wouldn't do anything differently, no. Because all of this is playing out exactly how it's supposed to. It's not my plan. And if you really believe in a higher power, you believe in God like we do, no, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be the example. I'm supposed to be the big voice. I'm supposed to already have the following and the platform that I do, so that I save so many more lives, so that I show so many more people a different way. It's really important. It is the way it is.
But you did say something that I want everyone to evaluate. You said you created this, meaning, and I think I know what you mean, all the stress, all the trauma, all the reliving the trauma, all the holding on to it, all the intensity pointed in the right direction makes a lot of awards and a lot of money. Intensity in the other direction can do harm. And I was actually asking, you came up last week. My mom asked me how you were doing because I've told my mom about you. And we were talking about my dad's cancer. My dad wasn't 34, my gosh, but my dad died young, relatively speaking. And I said, Mom, do you think Dad's trauma that he held on to from his upbringing and his stress, and my dad was this tremendous worrier. I inherited that from my dad. Most things with our kids are caught, not taught. I always say, I caught that from my dad, worrying and anxiety. And sometimes you be around my dad, he's just like a sigh for no reason, you know? And I said, Mom, do you think that maybe that brought some of this on or turned those genes on sooner, the stress and the anxiety and the worry? And my mom said, absolutely 100% yes. And I'm wondering, is that what you meant by that you brought some of this on?
Okay. From that perspective, bearing trauma in our bodies has been determined and researched to actually change our DNA. And it's been further indicated in research that that change, that alteration in DNA can be carried on to offspring. Now, she said something earlier about her intensity and how the cancer was was as intense as she was. Now, her indicating that she chose a high-stress lifestyle may be indicative of the trauma she survived in childhood. As trauma survivors, we do sometimes seek out certain dynamics that we've just become used to. That high stress level was something that she developed in childhood, and on some level, maybe Jessie feels more comfortable in life when there's that kind of pressure on her. So, from the perspective that Ed is bringing here about his dad and being just stressed and always in a negativity and anxiety over a long period of time, yes, that can lower your immunity to certain diseases.
Mm-hmm. The cancer world's interesting. There's some people who think cancer is the worst thing that ever happened to them, and there's some people who think cancer is the best thing that happened to them. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, I am in the second camp. Mm-hmm. And that freaks people out when I say that. She said, what? Mm-hmm. She said cancer is the best thing ever. Nothing was going to slow me down, Ed. It had to happen. I needed to smell the roses a little. But yeah, what I mean when I say I created this is I was always running ragged. Sleep was not the priority. The goals were the priority. The changing other people's lives was the priority. The helping others and always extending an extra hand and not taking care of myself.
Your own pleasure and enjoyment wasn't the priority.
No,
either.
Never.
Right.
I think even in this season of cancer and everything, I am enjoying way more. And I don't mean because I'm saying no to things. It's part of it is that presence thing. And I'm still competitive. I really still don't know anybody who can outsell me right now, even. Like, good luck. Like, I'm
She's
still a
still
monster.
Speaking all over the place, crushing it. Yeah.
It's yes to stuff I want, no to things I don't want. And so it goes back to all these high pressure things that I would put myself in and just, the toxic situations. And again, the no forgiveness. My mom was not the only person I didn't forgive. There's plenty of people that I did not forgive that I've had gosh, it's almost like I feel like I'm in an it's like one of the steps of AA, like you forgive people. Yeah. I'm really having to work on me as a person. And so the changes in Jessie Lee as an actual human being have been profound since February. They're not little changes. I've always been a kind person. I'm even more patient and kind now, which is a different kind of kindness.
I can sure relate to that because patience and kindness, those are two things that have been working in me in this past year of fighting this disease. Patience and kindness. And it has not been easy.
What would you say to somebody who says, what is the biggest thing you would impart upon to another person about what you've taken from this that we haven't shared yet?
I was a people pleaser, for sure. Like, I wanted everybody to like me, I think, because I wasn't liked very much when I was younger. So if you were nice to me and then mean to me, it was okay. I'd still be nice to you. And I think too many of us are living for other people instead of living for ourselves. Who are you living for? Because when you realize that every day is not guaranteed, you start realizing that your authentic self is all that you really need to be. We as humans, I think, spend so much time, effort, and energy trying to please people we don't even like.
Yeah.
And for what? At what cost? Most stuff just does not matter. And I wish more people would look at their life and realize that. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't give it 5 minutes. I will never forget when we first talked about the diagnosis and I said to you on a coaching call, I said, Ed, I think I need to put Boss Lee to rest. I think I need to just kind of chill a little bit and go more into just quiet time and whatever. And I remember seeing your face and I went, maybe that's not. And then I realized, no, Boss Lee is the reason I have all of this stuff. And I don't mean things. I mean the accomplishments, the accolades, the wealth, because she is an aggressor. She doesn't let people stomp all over her. How am I going to let cancer come in and stomp all over me? Oh, no.
And what you need to know here is that rather than to choose the course of treatment that her oncologist team suggested, she chose to go other routes, different alternatives, and in changing her diet and everything other than what they suggested she do to treat the matter. So when she says she's not going to allow cancer to come in and kick her butt, that was an indication that she had not really given up her control. Jessie had to take control of this and do it her way. Now, I'm not judging her. When you're in the trenches, you have to make decisions for yourself. And the empowerment to do that is often allowed by doctors. They will tell you what their best expertise suggests should be done. But if you choose another way, then they will allow you to do that. So she had the money to go outside of the United States and do different things and alternative treatments. But what I'm saying here, without being judgmental, is I'm just trying to call attention to how trauma infiltrates how we see everything in our lives.
So when I'm 9 and I send my dad to jail and I'm raised in a crazy domestic violence situation my whole life, I have to get raised by my grandparents because there's no one there. I become the leader of the household then. Physical violence and craziness like you can't even imagine. We don't have enough food. All of this just turmoil, chaos, whatever. I became the leader. Well, I have never understood why people get so upset about the word no. This one shocks me. And maybe that's why I went to 8 oncologists. I don't accept that for me or for my life. So when someone's like, oh, that prospect told me no, I go, well, did your parents tell you yes about everything when you were growing up? Because I was told no always. And I just kept selling myself over and over and over again to try to get something. Even if it's just, can I stay a little later? No. No. You guys would ask for ice cream 3 times and you'd get a yes. It was always no. So no doesn't hurt me, right? That turned me into this. So then
8 oncologists because she wasn't going to take no for an answer. Well, as you see and know by now, we lost Jessie, and that was right on schedule with what the team was telling her, that without intervention, she would probably transition by October. But she lived her life from diagnosis to the day she took her last breath on her own terms. She felt that the 2.5 years they would give her would not be the quality of life she wanted to live. Rest in peace, Jessie.
I just want to feel proud. This is what I told you. I'm like, I've had all this success, and it's like, when is it going to be enough? When am I going to sit there and go, in it? Because I just want to feel.
Thank you for joining me today on When Your Mind Becomes the Scene of the Crime podcast. Schedule your free breakthrough session now at lindafwilliams.com. That's lindafwilliams.com.